Sharif Ali, so long as the Arabs fight tribe against tribe, so long will they be a little people.
Now don't try to kid me, man cub. I made a deal with you.
Now the mythology of Cyrus's world is the mythology of the Persian prophet Zoroaster, or Zarathustra.
What I desire is man's red fire to make my dream come true.
Any prisoner who can teach 10 Muslims to read will go free.
This is a mythology of extraordinary interest to us, really, because it underlies all the later Hebrew and Christian thinking about the nature of the Messiah.
A silly people.
Though Muhammad Ali formulated a plan,
we'll say here boldly now on television,
of three major Abrahamic religions.
And Jillian Michaels was like, it's so unfair that slavery in this country only gets blamed on one race.
No, I will not go 10,000 miles from here to help murder and kill another poor people.
But this was no ordinary military campaign. It was a complex and multifaceted endeavor in the quest for control over the Holy Land, but also various historical and historiographical misconceptions and myths.
Many fled south into Sudan, but Muhammad Ali would invade the country to root them out. There was, however, another reason for his invasion of Sudan.
Well, simply to continue the domination of white slave masters. I've said it once and I will say it again. The real enemies of my people are right here.
As Muhammad Ali said, "You are aware that the end of all our effort and this expense is to procure Negroes."
Look, as outrageous as that is genuinely funny.
According to this mythology, the first creation was perfect, but an evil power, Angra Mainyu, destroyed it.
Greedy, barbarous, and cruel, as you are.
Muhammad teaches you a slave is equal to his master. Is black Bilal, the I paid money for, equal to me?
Yes. Muhammad says, before God, all men are as equal as the teeth of a comb.
And there is now in process a conflict between the powers of good and the powers of evil.
Come. I will take you to Faisal.
Avril Harriman was one of those men. His name was etched into the very bedrock of the 20th century.
Of a government that must forbid things in order to protect
what is the government's role? You've told me several times what it shouldn't do.
How about national defense?
Yeah, I consider this national defense, pal. Our families are under attack from people like you with these lyrics.
John, you don't have to buy them. Mr. Zappa, could I make a statement about national defense?
Yeah.
The biggest threat to America today is not communism. It's moving America toward a fascist theocracy. And everything that's happened during the Reagan administration is steering us right down that pipe.
Or the story of Abraham and Isaac. First, how each would approach the idea of offering a child sacrifice and what reward and or blessings they might negotiate with, or punishments they might use as coercion, or if they might refrain from such a test, e.g. divine game, for any reason.
A name synonymous with railroads, immense wealth, and the smoke-filled rooms where the fate of the world was decided.
This rock relief beneath the hooves of Ahura Mazda's horse lies Ahriman, the destructive evil spirit.
When the work is done, there would come the end of the world. That is to say, the end of this world of stress, the end of the world of tension and dark versus light. There would come a final savior, Saoshyant, and he would complete the victory over evil.
Are mentioned repeatedly in those emails as a close associate of
I don't
Jeffrey
know how
Epstein.
you and Netanyahu claim to have the best
Spent a lot of time in
intelligence in the
Epstein's
world,
house.
Mossad, and you didn't
So I
know
just
that.
want to ask you very bluntly, did Epstein ever traffic a woman or girl to you or offer one to you?
No, never. I now deeply regret having any association with him, but at the time during my occasional visit to the United States, I was sometimes participating in a breakfast or a lunch or a dinner at his New York townhouse together with respected American public figures.
After which, all surviving beings, and there would be the resurrection of the body and all this, all surviving beings would dwell in peace. And this formula of the Zoroastrians is exactly the source of Isaiah's wolf lying down with the lamb. This is a Persian idea. Isaiah, the second Isaiah, was a contemporary of this restoration under Cyrus.
In the year 586 BCE, can you imagine? 586 BCE, after the Babylonians, the Iraqis, devastated the land. They conquered us, they kicked us out of the land and exiled us to Babylon. They left a guy by the name of Gedaliah in charge of the land. A Jew, like a trophy, a vassal king, like a vassal governor for the Jewish people in the land of Israel who paid tribute taxes to the king. And when he was in charge of the farming Jews of the land of Israel, a little civil war broke out, another fellow Jew killed him on Rosh Hashanah, and that's why we fast. On the day after Rosh Hashanah, a fast called Tzom Gedalia. Why is it such a significant fast? Because as a result of that, the Babylonians couldn't trust the Jews anymore. They pretty much kicked all the Jews out of the land of Israel for about 43 years. 70 years after that, I mean, the Jews were, after the destruction of our first temple, the Jews came back to build the second temple. So we weren't gone for very long. But it was about 40 years of a gap that the Jews were not in the land of Israel. This is, you know how old Islam is? You know how old Islam is? Islam is a little kid. It's a new kid on the block in the preschool age compared to us in our geriatric years, the Jewish people. Because the Islam is 1,500 years old. That's it. I mean, Christianity also is 2,000 years old, but Islam 1,500 years old. That's it. That's when Mohammed showed up on the scene. Before that, they were just a bunch of nomads running around. You know, they weren't settled in any particular place. This is who the Arabs are. They claim they're Muslims. This is our land. You're only 1,500 years old. That's why when you look at the Temple Mount, what are they doing? They're trying to dig. The Jews stupidly, foolishly gave the Temple Mount to the Arabs, thinking it was going to make peace. Terrible idea. What they're doing up there is that they're trying to dig up the Temple Mount in order to remove any trace to rewrite history. Because if you find the temple, built by Solomon that goes back 2,800 years, you're going to have a problem. That's going to be a problem because the Muslims are just 1,500 years old. So where does this name Palestine come from?
It was a ferocious battle that resulted in the annihilation of all 40,000 inhabitants. All that is except one. The general in charge of the defending forces, Josephus, survived and underwent a miraculous conversion to emerge as the great scholar and historian.
You're only alive because of me.
War is in this pledge. We are to make enemies of brothers. We are to make firewood of our gods. That is the meaning of the pledge. If we take it, there can be no turning back. For Mohammed is indeed the messenger of God, foretold to us by the Jews in our city.
So if anyone has doubt in this pledge, go now.
And if you have no doubts, then you do as I do.
My invention.
The story of Abraham and Isaac, particularly the idea of child sacrifice as a divine test, could unfold differently depending on the deity involved. Here's how each might approach it.
And the notion of divinity or divine life, in my mind, would be what would determine my decision. And if it were rather crude, it would be a rather crude decision.
But is divinity just what we think?
Yes.
Everything with you is singing, isn't it? Your primary sensory intake that makes your dream live is singing. Reflections, mirrors, images.
Yahweh, Judaism. Yahweh famously commands Abraham to sacrifice Isaac in the Hebrew Bible, Genesis 22, framed as a test of faith and obedience. Yahweh's approach reflects his role as a God who demands absolute trust and loyalty. However, the story ultimately ends with Yahweh halting the sacrifice, providing a ram as a substitute.
Was seduced by Mars, the Roman god of war.
Motivation for the test. To demonstrate Abraham's unwavering faith and obedience, reinforcing the covenant. Reward blessing. Yahweh promises blessings of numerous descendants, greatness, and land for Abraham's faithfulness, signaling that obedience leads to divine favor. Reason to refrain. Yahweh intervenes at the last moment, emphasizing that he does not desire human sacrifice, but rather faith and moral commitment.
So his name literally means heel grabber. And so he comes out. His mother received a prophecy that he is going to be the chosen of the two sons. It says the older will serve the younger. And so mom helps him to scheme to get the blessing, even through deceit. We learned about that. Then everything blows up because Jacob basically steals the blessing from Esau.
And in classic biblical fashion, his second brother, Jacob, came out of the womb holding on to the heel of Esau. In Hebrew, the word heel is akev, and so hence the name Yaakov, the one who grabs the heel. And their lives start off like this.
And then Esau wants to kill him, and he runs.
Josephus is an extraordinary figure. Of course, he's the primary Jewish historian, but he started off as being a Jewish gentleman in Judea, and so according to his own history, he advises people not to fight against Rome. It's crazy.
God the Father, Christianity. In Christianity, this story is often seen as a precursor to God the Father offering his own son, Jesus, as a sacrifice for humanity's sins.
Sheep family. Lamb. Yearling. Ewe. Ram.
Motivation for the test. God the Father might still test Abraham to foreshadow his own future sacrifice, showing the depth of faith required in his divine plan. However, he might emphasize the redemptive nature of sacrifice rather than pure obedience. Reward blessing. Eternal salvation, positioning Abraham and Isaac as precursors to Christ, aligning them with divine grace and redemption for future generations. Reason to refrain. God the Father might avoid the test entirely, as Christ's sacrifice is already the ultimate fulfillment of such a divine act, rendering this game unnecessary.
A lot of Christians wear crosses around their necks. You think when Jesus comes back, he's going to want to see a fucking cross, man?
I think it was stunning to watch. But he was forced to become a leader of a Jewish group and was, in his own account, a successful, very successful leader of the Jewish fight against the Romans.
We want to know what you're reading now.
What I'm reading?
Yeah.
It's a book by a historian named Barry Strauss. It's called The Jews Against Rome.
But once surrounded by the Romans, the last few survivors enter into a suicide pact. Josephus is the person who organizes in which order they draw the straws.
Jews Against Rome.
What made you pick it up?
Well, we lost that one. I think we have to win the next one.
News report.
What happened on October 7th? Did our army not know what was going on? Were they just totally asleep? Were they sold out? Are we dumb?
I'm using my own psychological issues to associate something that cannot be associated with something else, as in you cannot associate ever Israelis with Nazis.
Where's that famous Israeli intelligence community? What's that all about? Where was the Air Force? Did they cower? Did they actually protest? What was it all about?
I could put a swastika on the middle of the Israeli flag in blue, and that to me would not be a conflict of interest.
In October 7 alone, something like 6,500, which is the biggest amount of rockets ever was launched against a state in the history of humankind.
Before October 7th, when the United States attacked them, I think there was a huge opportunity.
$15 million was transferred
in cash from Qatar, through Israelis to Hamas.
You just said things about Netanyahu that English-speaking people can barely stomach.
But on the outside, that would mean to say that I'm calling for the killing of the Jews because of the association, as opposed to, because they cannot see themselves as what they really are.
And what about Israeli society? Is Israeli society ready? Is it different? Has it changed? Has it left the old concepts of land for peace, appease the Arabs? That was the old thinking. Is that still today's thinking? And finally, what about the miracles? What did we really experience?
So when you associate them with Nazis, all they ever hear is kill the Jews, kill the Jews, kill the Jews, which then reinforces their violent reactions because of the right-wing, emotionally negligent leaders.
No, you're accusing him of being some kind of foreign agent
that are amplifying this defense. Now, and I understand too, it's pretty significant that they've allowed him. When you understand, even Obama and Bush, psychotic Bushes and Reagan, they still talk defensively.
I think we have to win the next one.
And where they've lured essentially, like this guy said, the Jewish people have voted for these things.
Or at least selling out.
They've lured Benjamin Netanyahu into talking offensively, which is not a well-accepted political maneuver.
This guy speaks such an amazing English, you know, and he's standing in front of the Congress and everybody loves him.
So, that's my point. I'm not going to go too much because I got to get to work. But
right.
He's not good for Israel. That's the truth. I'm looking at the proof, the facts. You can't make this thing up.
We often fall into the trap of thinking harder is holier. And in almost no other time in the year do we fall into that trap more heavily than
It's not how heavy your Bible is, how close you sit to the front row in church, or whether you wear a cross or put a fish on your car. Jesus called you to follow him, not to simply look up to him, but to truly be his disciple, to lose your life so that it can be saved for eternity. But how do we live a life that is truly surrendered to God? What does it look like? That's the question we'll examine with today's email. It reads, very simply, what does it mean to take up my cross daily?
You know, it's kind of like going up to Jackie Onassis with a rifle pendant on, you know? Thinking of John, Jackie, we love him.
What is your name? Is Legion, for we are many.
Trying to keep that memory alive, baby.
In Islamic tradition, this story, known as the Dabi, involves Abraham and his son, often identified as Ishmael, Quran 37, 99 to 113. Allah commands Ibrahim to sacrifice his son as a test of submission. Islam means submission to Allah's will. Motivation for the test: to affirm Ibrahim's total submission to Allah's will, demonstrating the ultimate act of surrender to divine authority. Reward blessing: Ibrahim is blessed with the promise of more children and descendants who will become great nations, emphasizing the rewards of submission to Allah. Reason to refrain: like Yahweh, Allah spares the child by substituting a ram.
The god of revenge, Mars Ultor, meaning Mars who has the last word.
Underscoring that he does not need or desire human sacrifice, but values devotion and surrender above all.
Perfect harmony with all of Thra, forgotten by the world above. For uncounted millennia, all of Thra existed in perfect balance. But then, new beings came, not of Thra.
Reason to refrain: like Yahweh, Allah spares the child by substituting a ram, underscoring that he does not need or desire human sacrifice, but values devotion and surrender above all.
The Persian religion, then, is a universal, not a racial religion. It is interracial. It is not tribal, but imperial. And this has become the inspiration for most of the great imperial religions everywhere since, including the Chinese.
Ahura Mazda, Zoroastrianism. Ahura Mazda operates in a moral framework rooted in truth, Asha, and would likely reject the idea of child sacrifice outright. Motivation for the test: Ahura Mazda would likely see no reason to test Abraham with such a demand, as this act would violate the principles of truth and righteousness. The cosmic struggle against evil would make such a test appear more aligned with Angra Mainyu, the destructive spirit. Reward, coercion. Instead of rewards tied to sacrifice, Ahura Mazda might bless Abraham for his commitment to Asha and truth, offering spiritual wisdom or guidance to help him align with the divine order. Reason to refrain. Ahura Mazda's philosophy would inherently oppose such a test, as it could sow chaos and falsehood, weakening humanity's fight against evil. Child sacrifice would be an affront to the principle of fostering life and harmony.
The coming into power of the great first Chinese emperor, Shi Huangdi, was shortly following the establishment of the Persian realm, and he governed under the mandate of heaven, under heaven's rule. Now let me just very briefly say a word about the idea of the Messiah as it developed in these centuries. The first idea was that the Messiah would simply be the restorer of Israel to supremacy in its domain.
When they're down to two people, he said to the other guy, hey, why do we keep on killing ourselves? The other guy stabs himself to death, and Josephus walks out. What's charming about the story is he himself tells it, that he betrays his own cause, surrenders, offers his services to Vespasian and Titus, and gets accepted.
And it was thought for some time that Hezekiah would could actually be named the Messiah. After the Persian idea had been assimilated by the Hebrews, the notion was that the coming of the Messiah would mark the end of strife in the world, and the Hebrew Messiah would be the counterpart of the Persian Saoshyant.
Josephus went on to chronicle the adventures of Vespasian and to write a history of the Jewish war.
I do not want your company, Sheriff.
Wadi Safra is another day from here. You will not find it, and not finding it, you will die.
I will find it with this.
After Jotapata, he was never far from the Roman general's side.
He was alone in the game. Suddenly, an angel came into him. The angel said, "Read." Mohammed replied, "I cannot read." The angel commanded again, "Read, in the name of thy Lord, who created man from a sensitive drop of blood, who teaches man what he knows not. Read."
Good army compass. How if I take it?
Then he would be a thief.
I don't hate you. I just don't understand you. We may be offshoots of the same species, but our cultures are just too different.
Have you no fear, English?
My fear is my concern.
I was taught to try to do good even when there's evil all around me, but you were taught to look innocent even while you're planning the deaths of everyone around you.
History books give them the answer. 1,000 years ago, the Middle East lit its streets up at night using oil lamps.
Truly. God be with you, English.
Which meant that medieval Arabs had oil, which meant there was probably oil somewhere in the Middle East.
Now give me the secret, man cub. Come on, clue me what you do.
So that's where they decide to start looking.
Give me the power, a man's red.
Palmach in Hebrew means striking forces.
So I can be like you.
The Palmach in Israeli history have an almost mythical quality. They're seen as being the cradle in many ways of Jewish society.
Get a hold of Agrippa, so of course we can supply you. But you can't.
You could.
You mean
The Turks have 12-inch guns at Aqaba, sir. Can you imagine what that means?
Yes, I can imagine.
An unorthodox British officer named Ord Wingate was behind the Palmax techniques.
Put that out of your mind, sir. The Navy's got other things to do.
Oh yes, protecting the Suez Canal.
The one essential sector of this front is and must be the canal.
In anticipation of this, the Brits decide to expand their presence in the Arabian Gulf.
You can see that, sir, surely.
I see that the canal is an essential British interest. It is of little consequence to us.
Now, they already had, it's also called the Persian Gulf. I'm using the Arabian Gulf in this particular case because at the time the Brits were using it that way.
I must ask you not to speak like that, sir. British and Arab interests are one and the same.
Possibly.
For decades, Americans have been told that the nation's gold reserves are locked away safely in Fort Knox. But very few people have ever been allowed inside. And when the government finally staged an audit, what really happened left the public with more doubts than answers.
Upon my word, sir, you're ungrateful. Fall back on Yambo and we will give you equipment, give you arms, advice, training, everything.
Boy, you want help? No. Then at least put me in touch with the Mujahideen.
1. The Fortress of Gold. Fort Knox, Kentucky. Built in 1936 during the Great Depression, this heavily guarded vault quickly became a symbol of U.S. financial power. Officially, it's said to hold more than 147 million ounces of gold, worth hundreds of billions of dollars at today's prices. But here's the strange truth. Almost no one has actually seen it. Even presidents have rarely been allowed inside.
We're with the Mujahideen. We leave with them in the morning on some kind of operation.
Give us guns and keep the training. Your men need training far more than guns, sir.
The English will teach the Bedou to fight.
We will teach them, Sheriff Ali, to fight a modern mechanized army.
2. From gold standard to mystery. Back when the U.S. dollar was backed by gold, Fort Knox represented financial credibility. But in 1971, when President Nixon closed the gold window, the world shifted to paper money. Suddenly, those gold reserves weren't directly backing the dollar anymore. And that's when the doubts began. Was the gold still there? Or had it quietly been moved, leased, or even sold?
Ord Wingate was a man with great, if unconventional, military talents, who he put at the disposal of...
I'm sorry, sir, but you're wrong. Fall back on Yambo, sir, and the Arab Rising becomes one poor unit in the British Army.
What is this to you?
Lawrence, do you know you're a traitor?
No, Colonel. He is a young man, and young men are passionate. They must stay their stay.
Rabbis suck baby penises. It has a name.
the Jews when there was no state of Israel.
The reason the Brits have a presence already in the Arabian Gulf is the following. The Arab states that are today the UAE, Qatar, Bahrain, and Oman had pirate fleets, and those pirate fleets were operating in the Arabian Sea, capturing British ships going back and forth between India and the British Empire. And it was driving the Brits absolutely bonkers.
So the Kalon have figured out a way to mess with our minds. Great.
It makes sense. With the Krill at our side, they can't outgun us. But with this, they may not need to.
So in the early 19th century, the Brits either militarily engaged them or diplomatically engaged them, and they make a deal to get them to stop attacking British shipping.
If you can control someone's perception of reality.
3. The 1974 publicity stunt. Under public pressure, the Treasury finally allowed a group of reporters, congressmen, and officials inside Fort Knox in 1974. Cameras showed stacks of gold bars gleaming in the vault. It looked convincing, but the group was only shown a tiny fraction of the reserves. There was no full audit, no weighing, no purity testing, just a staged glimpse to calm the public.
What about the war?
Regularly, the Sukis start a big war. One war produces 3 generations of controllable humans.
Control how?
Control them with a loser's mindset. A loser's mindset has the mindset to be isolated, untrusting, dishonorable, non-cooperating. They have been divided and conquered. They have adopted the freedman strategy.
And then when the war deeds are concluded, the young men are returned to domestic life through another series of rites.
Combat, when a fighting man's nervous system has been stressed to the breaking point and he's either snapped or is ready to snap. In the First World War, that condition was known as shell shock. Simple, honest, direct language, 2 syllables, shell shock. Almost sounds like the guns themselves. That was over 80 years ago. Then an entire generation passed, and in the Second World War, the very same combat condition was called battle fatigue. 4 syllables now, takes a little longer to say, doesn't seem to hurt as much. Fatigue is a nicer word than shock. Shell shock. Battle fatigue. Then we had Korea, 1950. Madison Avenue was riding high, and the very same combat condition was called operational exhaustion. We're up to 8 syllables now, and the humanity has been squeezed completely out of the phrase. It's absolutely sterile, operational exhaustion. Sounds like something that might happen to your car. Finally, of course, there was Vietnam, and given the lies surrounding that war, I guess it's no surprise that the very same condition was called post-traumatic stress disorder. Still 8 syllables, but we've added a hyphen, and the pain is now completely buried under jargon, post-traumatic stress disorder.
One of the problems, I would say, in our warfare is that young people who have been brought up for domestic life suddenly find themselves in the warrior role without a proper induction. Their consciousness has not been taught to participate in this ageless, timeless, immemorial activity, which in many societies is regarded as the greatest sport.
I'd be willing to bet that if we'd still been calling it shell shock, some of those Vietnam veterans might have gotten the attention they needed at the time they needed it.
Call this strategy honor to the inside, dishonor to the outside. A two-faced game theory.
$100 golden guineas. 100, 150, what matters? It's a trifle. Trifle, which they take from a great box they have. In Aqaba. In Aqaba? Where else?
President Donald Trump's 1776 checks for more than 1 million troops announced Wednesday.
To the gods! The gods!
Wednesday comes from congressionally allocated reconciliation funds. Intended to subsidize housing allowances for service members, a senior administration official confirmed.
So it's not from tariffs. Well, that kind of sucks.
So we're not taking the
You're
money.
taking the money from their housing and you're giving.
So we're stealing the money from troops and then giving it back to troops.
It's just that if you're going to do
it's not a bonus. It's money they were already getting.
Look, Ali. If any of your Bedouin arrived in Cairo and said, "We've taken Aqaba," the generals would laugh.
I see. In Cairo, you will put off these funny clothes. You will wear trousers and tell stories of our quaintness and barbarity. And then they will believe you.
You're an ignorant man.
That's already happening. You're seeing the polarization in countries that allow for the First Amendment and protect it, which is great. And I know it's difficult to hear, but it's time to limit the First Amendment in order to protect it, and quickly before it's too late.
What do you mean?
I mean that
peaceful conquest is easy.
So the Brits are already on the ground there, but they decide to expand, and the place they're thinking about ends up being Kuwait.
No gold. No great bucks. Did the Ouder come to Aqaba for gold?
For my pleasure, as you said. But gold is honorable. An orange promised gold. Orange slide.
Comparison. 1. Yahweh and Allah Demand a willingness to sacrifice, emphasizing faith, obedience, and submission, but ultimately sparing the child, rejecting human sacrifice as unnecessary. 2. God the Father might frame the test as symbolic, foreshadowing Christ's sacrifice, or skip it entirely as the concept of divine grace supersedes it. 3. Ahura Mazda would reject the premise altogether, viewing such a test as antithetical to his moral framework of order and truth. Would you like to explore how each might react to Abraham's response or expand into other details of the story?
Oh, baby, we gotta start thinking like these Wall Street guys. You see what they did to this country? They stole from everybody. Hardworking people lost everything. And not one of these douchebags went to jail. Not one. Is that fair?
So this is both quite a gesture on the part of the British government and the royal family, but it's also an insight into the lengths to which they are willing to go to stay on the right side of this president.
Here, there is a killer prowling the Caribbean, bloodthirsty, looking for wars.
See, the Crown of England promises to pay 5,000 golden guineas to Auda Abu Tai, signed in His Majesty's absence by me.
We've got a law in common, you and I. The Allah of our common father, Abraham. I love Abraham.
Tacitus puts it beautifully. Rude nations would be coaxed toward peaceful paths through comfort. The Britons were seduced by pleasant pastime.
And I love his love for all his children. And yes, I do believe that Allah sees me, sees us.
Till finally the gullible natives came to call their slavery culture.
No, baby, this game is rigged. And it does not reward people who play by the rules.
They literally carve Kuwait out of the Ottoman Empire so that they're at the top of the Arabian Gulf.
In 10 days, I'll be back with the gold. With gold, with guns, with everything.
10 days. You'll cross Sinai?
Why not? Moses did.
And he comes down from Mount Sinai, bringing to the children of Israel the new law. Actually the 10 Commandments also, of which Moses is supposed to have gotten from God. The 10 Commandments are actually based on the Egyptian negative confessions. Do some research at the library or on the web on the subject of Egyptian negative confessions. And you'll find that the Egyptian negative confessions was the laws in Egypt, and they're almost identical to the 10 Commandments. So that's probably where we get the 10 Commandments, is from Egypt. And here's just a classic example of the comparing the Egyptian negative confessions to the Hebrew laws from Moses.
4. What an audit really means. A true gold audit isn't just opening the door. It means counting every bar, weighing each one, and testing its purity. That process takes years. Officially, the U.S. has done sample checks of portions of the gold, but the reports are often partial, redacted, and never fully released to the public. Each time, it only fuels suspicion that there's more to the story.
Importantly, they give us a solid definition of what cognitive warfare is. Now, cognitive warfare, we'll call it fifth-generation warfare, psychological warfare, liminal warfare, or gray area warfare. And what that means is it's really overt and covert objectives below the threshold of war. So, big surprise here, World War III is not in the future. You're living through World War III right now.
You've been very sympathetic, Mr. Stanley. Your Highness, we Americans were once a colonial people, and we naturally feel sympathetic to any people anywhere who are struggling for their freedom. Very gratifying.
Right next to the mouth of the Tigris and the Euphrates, the Shatt al-Arab, where the two rivers come together. And that way they can militarily position themselves if they need to in the event they find the oil they think they might find.
77th Brigade Information Operations, adapting to warfare in the information age.
I serve. It is the servant who takes the money.
5. The modern era, still no full audit. In 2017, Treasury Secretary Stephen Mnuchin visited Fort Knox, the first Treasury Secretary to do so in decades.
And the speculation for a long time was he made his money from blackmail. But the DOJ and the FBI, again, run by people like Dan Bongino and Kash Patel and Pam Bondi are telling you, I'm not telling you, they're telling you, people who are members of the Trump administration,
who could
people
doubt
you
that
elected
crew?
and put
Right.
into these positions to get you the truth on this matter, are telling you.
And here's what I think this truly means as a whole. Whoever controls your attention during a psychedelic window, they control what gets strengthened, they control what gets weakened, and they control which version of you comes out on the other end of that experience.
Andrew! Have you asked the police to cover up for Andrew's cars?
I was meant to fight him. No, you weren't. But the Knight's Code is
Be
very...
damned. I believed you would die, and that was a risk I could not take. You are too precious to me.
That he didn't, in fact, he was not murdered.
You mean more to me than anything I know. More than this entire kingdom, and certainly more than my own life.
77th Brigade Information Operations, adapting to warfare in the information age.
Stocks plummeting. It's triggering a major sell-off in the markets. The damage widespread.
Multiple bubbles. It can be an explosion. And it happened by chance. 500 million scientists will tell you it was unprecedented. It happened in flash. And from it, suddenly the world had millions of new species. From that, was born us, the human race. Now in that sense, bubbles are evolutionary. They kill excess. They lean out the herd. But they never die. They just come back in different forms. When they burst, they give birth to a new day. Always creating change.
Warfare is rapidly evolving, and the ability to compete in the information domain is critical. We must develop our capabilities and find novel ways of operating to counter our adversaries. Foreign and domestic.
We do not work this thing for Faisal. No. For the English then? For the Arabs.
Who we are. 77th Brigade is a hybrid unit of regulars and reservists with specialist skills to combat new forms of warfare in the information environment for the defense of the UK and its overseas territories or aspirations.
The Arabs. The Hawitat Ajili, Rala, Beni Safar. These I know. I have even heard of the Harith. But the Arabs? What tribe is that?
Some of the ways we help or attack. Okay, establish partnerships, operating platforms, and systems in order to conduct overseas operations.
They're a tribe of slaves. They serve the Turks.
Understand the information environment and opportunities to gain an advantage within it.
Well, they are nothing to me. My tribe is the Hawitat. Work only for profit. Who work at Aldo's pleasure. And Aldo's pleasure is to serve the Turks.
Identify, develop, and conduct information operations independently or with partners to gain advantage against actual or potential adversaries. Conduct audience analysis. Conduct audience analysis. Conduct audience analysis to deliver the most effective operations in support of military objectives.
Operation Enduring Freedom 03. For the Taliban, stay for the opium.
Develop capabilities to operate and ensure advantage in the information domain.
A new Justice Department memo reveals that the Justice Department has no evidence that convicted sex offender Jeffrey Epstein blackmailed powerful people.
Confusion in London yesterday as a double-decker bus exploded on Lambeth Bridge. According to Associated Press, city officials said it was a staged explosion for a new film starring Jackie Chan and Pierce Brosnan called The Foreigner. People immediately hit Twitter, though, complaining that the public had not been adequately warned.
Or kept a client list, or was murdered in prison.
Never mind, because now we're a republic forever and ever. And they go across to France and he just parties for 10 years.
One reporter is saying that the federal prosecutors are running into what seems like jury nullification in cities where Trump's deployed the military.
And then, of course, Cromwell pegs it and everyone's like, oh, who's next in charge? There was no one in charge.
And with that, what I'm going to tell you is pretty crazy. The last time that this happened in America was in the 1760s and 70s when the British Crown occupied Boston and New York.
And there was instantly a constitutional crisis.
What we do. The 77th Brigade constrains our hostile state actors and adversaries through information operations and targeting deployed and at standoff. Using intelligence to understand audiences and systems, analyze networks, and identify intelligence opportunities, the brigade holds a range of capabilities to deliver effect. 77th Brigade activities are best employed in concert with other military effects to achieve integrated action.
King Charles II came back and he's like, do you reckon there's a sheen of this, mother bitches? He's like, I'll tell you what, I'll still be the king, but I acknowledge Cromwell had a few points. How about you have some of the power, but we still have a king and we still have a monarchy for show.
Did I go on what? Did I go on the No Kings protest? I think that would be a little bit hypocritical from a man from Britain.
And that's what's been in place ever since, and that's why we are the way we are today, with some unqualified tossers rolling over us, whereas us peasants scrab around for whatever's left.
If there'd been a No Kings apart from Charles, I would have been fucking bang up for it.
Grand juries in both cities flat out refused to indict or convict anyone for riot or protest charges so frequently that the British Crown eliminated grand juries and jury trials in America altogether. And actually, yesterday, Trump's agriculture secretary said that Trump is leading a revolution compared to 1776, with many saying she's right, he's King George.
The memo, first reported by Axios, is a sharp turn from the Trump administration's insistence that there was much more to uncover.
He's screwing up trade, he's sending people to foreign prisons, people are having to pay crazy taxes on things that they need, like tea and sugar again. He's ruling by decree, hey, maybe soon we'll have to let the National Guard live with us. But hey, for now, while you can, follow to stay in the loop.
Investigators say they found no incriminating client list of Epstein's, no credible evidence that Epstein blackmailed prominent individuals, and no evidence that could predicate an investigation against uncharged third parties.
He did not keep a client list. And he did not blackmail powerful figures.
What are your future plans?
You'll see them and hear about them in the media, God willing.
And if you believe it, you are one of the stupidest jerks that ever lived on the face of this earth. And whatever is going to happen that they're going to blame on Osama bin Laden, don't you even believe it.
7. The symbol of Fort Knox. Fort Knox is no ordinary building. It's a symbol of strength, credibility, and financial stability. Whether the vaults are filled to the ceiling with gold or not nearly as full as claimed, the mystery itself has become a powerful weapon. After all, when the public can't see the gold, the only thing holding up trust is faith in the government's word.
This land is yours. But you must protect it. It won't be yours long if you don't protect it. If necessary, with your lives, and your children with their lives. Don't discount your enemies. They will be back. And if your house is burned, build it again. If your corn is destroyed, replant. If your children die, bear more. If they drive you out of the valley, live on the sides of the mountain, but live.
I am out of time. Get out of sir. Get out of time, sir. I carry 23 great wounds, all got in battle. 75 men have I killed with my own hands in battle.
You've always looked for leaders, strong men without faults. There aren't any. There are only men like yourselves. They change. They desert. They die. There are no leaders but yourselves. The strong people is the only lasting strength.
I scatter, I burn my enemies' tents. I take away their flocks and herds. The Turks pay me a golden treasure, yet I am poor, because I am a river to my people. Is that service?
Are insane. Yesterday, on November 4th, it was reported that Vice President Dick Cheney had passed away. Dick Cheney was the vice president during the attacks of 9/11. On the FBI's website, they state that 2,976 people died as a result of the September 11th attacks. What's odd is that also yesterday, UPS Flight 2976 crashed. So on the same day that Dick Cheney passes away, he's connected to September 11th, where 2,976 people die. You have UPS Flight 2976 crash. That's weird. Not only that, but the model of the plane that was used for Flight UPS 2976, the MD-11, that was retired from passenger service 11 years and 9 days from the date of the crash. And wouldn't you know it, as of today, the news is reporting that 9 people have died and 11 people are injured. And oddly, last night, Donald Trump puts out a post that says, "And so it begins." This phrase is famously used in the movie Lord of the Rings, The Two Towers. It's just weird.
Govern the people of this kingdom and its dominions, according to the statutes, customs, and laws laid down by your forebears.
I do, sire.
Do you promise to exercise mercy and justice in your deeds and judgments?
I do, sire.
Holy See think Catholic Church Incorporated, of which the Pope is the CEO. Now, back to the King. The King of Vatican City has absolute unchecked power within the country's borders, and his presence makes Vatican City one of only 6 remaining absolute monarchies in the world, including Brunei, Oman, Qatar, Saudi Arabia,
from the Syro-Arabian desert with their sheep and goat herds. Both of these were terribly fierce people, and their raids were appalling.
The Old Testament is full of stories of peaceful little towns. A dust cloud rises on the horizon. What is it? Is it a cloud? No. It's a band of Bedouins. And the next morning, there isn't a living soul in the city. The two great war books, the two great books of war mythology in the West are the Iliad and the Old Testament. The raiding of the Trojan and Cretan domain by the Achaeans and Dorians took place almost exactly in the same centuries as the entry of the Amorites and the Moabites and the Habiru, or Hebrews, into Palestine. These are contemporaneous events. Furthermore, the legends dealing with these events grew up almost simultaneously. The dates for the formation of the Iliad and the Torah are exactly the same. Furthermore, the basic mythological concept animating these stories and making them so wonderful and so vivid and so thrilling to the people who love them, the basic mythology was that this activity on earth of our people invading those people was being directed from a heavenly sphere by divine beings.
In Swaziland, the king's absolute power is why Vatican City can't join the European Union because only democracies are allowed. Though Vatican City does, strictly speaking, have a legislative branch of government staffed by cardinals appointed by the Pope, the king of Vatican City can overrule their decisions at any time for any reason.
Now the Holocaust to Yahweh, the massacring of everybody in the town, was not the kind of warfare exclusive to the Hebrews. This was the warfare waged by the Semites in all of their campaigns. The Moabites, the Assyrians also. The great Assyrian monarch Tiglath-Pileser III realized, as you would have thought somebody might have realized before, that if you massacre everybody in the town, you don't have anybody to work for you. And yet, if you leave them there, they pull themselves together, and you have a revolution on your hands. In other words, he uprooted the entire Near East. From that time on, there has been no ground-rooted people, really, in the Near East. There has been a sort of horizontally related church and sect situation. Not ground-rooted, but horizontally related peoples. When Israel fell, 721, its people were not massacred as they would have been the century before. They were transported somewhere else.
So why do you never hear about the king of Vatican City? Because though king and pope are two different roles, they just happen to be occupied by the same person at the same time.
And other people taken into Israel. And then when Jerusalem fell, a few years later, 586, again, the people of Jerusalem and Judah were removed, not massacred. And then came a wonderful transformation in the whole war mythology of the Near East.
Which has the funny consequence that because the Pope is elected and the king is all-powerful, but they're the same guy,
This was when the Persian monarch, Cyrus, conquered the Babylonians, who had conquered the people of Judah. And his view was, you don't transport people from one place to another, you don't massacre them, you put them in their places and govern them through subordinates who will be under you. And so he became the great Persian King of Kings. And that title which he took, and that title which has remained, the title of the Persian king, became the title of the Lord God, who is called the King of Kings.
Vatican City, the world's only elected, non-hereditary absolute monarchy.
And of course the Arabs have their mythology too. They are also a Semitic people. They are also descended, according to their mythology, from Abraham. They are the children of Ishmael, the first and oldest son of Abraham. Abraham and Ishmael, according to Muslim mythology, built the Kaaba, the shrine in Mecca, the central shrine of all the Arab world. And the Arabs have been in continuous knowledge of the fact that they derived from the same tradition as the Hebrews. They honor Abraham, they honor Moses, they honor also Jesus as a prophet, and they declare Mohammed to be the final prophet. But they have a war mythology also. And from the Quran, which is for them the most recent word and final word of God, I've taken this final little text I want to read. When you put it together with the ones I've already read, it makes a rather frightening point.
It's this dual role that makes untangling Vatican City so difficult, because the Pope, depending on the situation, acts either as the king of the country of Vatican City or the Pope of the Holy See. Got it?
Good of having all the money in the world.
Into conversation with two really marvelous characters, Settembrini and Nafta. These are two men greatly interested in telling young people what they ought to believe, each, of course, from a different standpoint with respect to the other. So here our little hero finds himself
if it doesn't bring any happiness
between these two men.
No one deserves to be happy.
Settembrini, an Italian, liberal politically, an encyclopedist. The other man, Nafta, an extremely interesting character, a Jew who has become a Jesuit and is a communist. Now, if you just think about that for a minute, what Thomas Mann has done in this man, whose name is Nafta, has been to pack together all the authorities, all those who rest on a book, all those who tell you this is what the book says and this is what you've got to do.
But you need to start thinking about some affordable housing around here. And I'll be like, well, actually, champ, I can afford my house.
Gaddafi stood up, looked straight at Saudi's King Abdullah and said, "You were made by the British, protected by the Americans. Lies are behind you, and death is in front of you."
That sounds like some shit you need to worry about. Because if I think about it, I can afford your house too. So if you want to sell, come holler at your boy. I'm collecting the whole town. I'm collecting the whole goddamn town.
But these men went on, and this continued to happen. One after another, the authorities broke down. They broke down in the social sphere with love. They broke down in the cosmological sphere with science, with research, with experiment. And it's fascinating to read the experiments, these little tiny experiments of these men in the 13th, 14th, and 15th centuries. They realized what was happening when some little kink in the universe turned out to be different from what they had been told. They realized they had started to smash the whole thing. Now, perhaps you remember in Dante's Divine Comedy.
So this is my vow. All gods will die.